Welcome back, guys. Well, I've got a new place to live and I need to naturalize the yard a bit better. And I want to talk to my friend here at Gilligallou Bird, Bob, to hear about how I can do that, how I can support my local birds and wildlife, and also how I'll probably support myself. I really want to add more wild edibles to my yard. So let's go inside and check out what Bob has to say. I'm here today with Bob from Gilligallou Bird here in Almont, and you guys know Bob from some previous videos we've done together, talking a bit about backyard birding and some wild edibles. So thanks, Bob, for having me back at the store.
Thanks so much for coming in. It's awesome. I always enjoy our visit.
Yeah, me too. So the reason I'm here today is I've got a new place and I'm really looking at naturalizing the yard to further promote a lot of the birds to come in and to enjoy my yard. It's a lot of grass, and I kind of want to just like non-native grasses, and I kind of just want to naturalize it, attract more birds to the place, because I can see this is a great area to have birds and to do some bird watching, but I need to make my yard a lot more attractive to them. So
beautiful. I
know a lot of our viewers, have homes as well, or cabins they might want to kind of make a little bit more natural to encourage wildlife and birds. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So
nice.
Hope you can help me out.
Yes, it's a topic that's near and dear to me too. So
good.
I really enjoy this part of it. So.
Excellent, excellent. So where does someone like myself begin if we're looking at attracting, say, more songbirds and things like that to the yard?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously some research is required. You have to kind of delve into that a little bit to know what sustains what, and there's a lot of valuable information online, of course, these days.
Yep.
Tons of different Facebook pages. The GilligallouBird.com has a bunch of stuff. Our YouTube channel has a bunch of stuff.
That's right.
Your YouTube channel has things. But I really think this perspective, as we talked about before, in terms of what why you're planning your yard. You want some edibles, yes. But what edibles do the edibles sustain by putting them in there?
Yeah.
So I think the research is the number one thing, and then laying out a bit of a map. Because the other thing that we talked with people is not only about what you do in your yard, but if you have neighbors on either side of you and behind you, let's expand that a little bit and link some backyards together and say, you know what, I'm into this sort of thing. Are you interested as a neighbor? Maybe you already know them, and you can start to link some backyards, because then that's a habitat that's a bigger section of habitat that's created. I just wanted to share a little story. There was a lady in New York City, in I think it was the Bronx, that had a backyard that was just a total disaster. It was just stuff, it was garbage, it was all kinds of different things.
Concrete jungle kind of.
And she decided that she had no prior knowledge, and she decided that she was going to just get some plants that were not a problem. That was the basis of her research, actually. I just don't want it to be an issue in terms of putting it here and then causing more trouble. Right,
like an invasive species?
Invasive species, yeah. And she said within an hour of having it sort of blossom, there was birds there. And of course, in New York City is right on the flight path of a lot of our warblers.
Ah, right.
So if you can visualize that from above, you're a warbler, you're flying over New York City, and what do you see? Where can I find food?
Right.
And they just went into her backyard.
Here's the spot where I can rest and eat.
Yeah. So if you think about it from that perspective, using that as an example, and it was an amazing thing that she literally had no knowledge at all, and just did a bit of research and started to put in some natural plant matter that attracted some bugs and caterpillars and some things that the warblers wanted.
Right.
So I think that's a great place to start in your yard.
Okay, awesome. And so maybe drawing out a plan for my yard, just, meeting the neighbors. We're new in the neighborhood, so meeting the neighbors, seeing if they want to collaborate with us to make kind of not like a fragment of habitat, but to kind of interlink all of us to really support our local wildlife.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's a good point. So yeah, one thing about it's great we're talking about neighbors, because my last place, as you all know, when I did my backyard foraging video, I naturalized part of my backyard, and there's a little bit of tension between me and one of the neighbors in regard to that. So I know you were talking about, you have some really awesome ideas for how to redo my grass. So why don't we talk about that and how I should break the news to the neighbors of what I'm going to do.
Well, in our yard, we did about 1,000 square feet of a native prairie meadow mix, it's called, and it's actually a wild grasses patch basically, and we added a package of flowers for bees and a package of flowers for the butterflies. So the color and the diversity of greens and flower colors and all, it's just an amazing piece of habitat that is again utilized almost immediately. But given the fact that it's unkept, if you like, in terms of grass, the monoculture, people may view it and not completely understand what it is you're doing. So by talking with your neighbors, they understand what you're getting into, and they realize that you're actually doing something that benefits everybody. And this meadow mix, it's a prairie meadow mix, it's called, and it's a native term, or it's a term of native plants that used to be grown natively all across Ontario, even though they say it's prairie. It actually was here in Ontario as well, that it grew everywhere here. And you can get the plant matter through, we have a full ingredients list on our YouTube channel from when we did it, but it's through the company in Western Ontario called OSC.
Okay, yeah, very familiar with OSC. Great company.
Great company. And this is
a lot of my seeds from them.
A native prairie meadow mix, and with all the plant matter stuff that's in it. And then we added, as I say, a package of flowers for bees and a package of flowers for butterflies.
Perfect.
And this winter, with all the snow we've had, so here in Eastern Ontario, we've had tons and tons and tons of snow this winter.
I think I was reading in our area, like 8 feet of snow has fallen. I mean, in the bush is about 4 or 5 feet right now, so it just tells you, like, we've been inundated with snow.
And it's amazing.
So, yeah, you said that changed your garden as well, you know, because you naturalized part of your yard, as you just mentioned.
Right.
But how has that helped you with the snow this year?
So the other feature of this meadow mix is that it supports the snow, so it creates an ecology or a habitat, I guess you would say, underneath the grass throughout the winter. So there's the insects and moles and mice and what have you live underneath there. You don't get that matter down in your yard that creates a winter mold, they call it, on your grass. So you don't get that, but then it supports the snow. So in our yard, it's quite amazing in that with all this snow we have, as it slopes through the yard and goes across this wild grass section, it's up here, and then the rest of our lawn, the snow went down like that. And it's just an amazing thing that it's supporting it like that, and so that then it'll also mulch the plant matter from last year as it goes down, and then it regenerates itself for the next year, and you don't have to do a thing.
That's right. That's like at the cabin, guys. I don't know if you guys know that we have a huge part of our well, not huge part, but a big part of our property is actually a natural meadow.
Right.
And it's amazing, you know, in the spring when I see, you know, the snow kind of melt and unthaw, it's great for moisture control, you know, and I see a lot of, you know, voles and moles like making sort of trails underneath, and mice underneath the grass. And I've had snow buntings actually come in on the field to feed on the seeds. So I think that's great if I bring kind of that, bring a little bit of the cabin and back to our home. And, you know, this native meadow mix sounds great because, you know, we can bring in all kinds of different birds into our neighborhood and support, like we have some water issues in the new house. So I think having a lot of natural grass to kind of build a root system to kind of absorb some of that water and take it away at the house is an added benefit. So something else to consider as well.
And then the goldfinches and all the variety of different birds that use this section, again, not unlike the lady in New York City, it was almost immediate that when there was plants there, the goldfinch were in, the American tree sparrows were running around the ground, the song sparrows were running around the ground. Green leopard frogs were in almost immediately. Like
it contains a lot of moisture, right? So we get a lot of leopard frogs, good point, in our field as well, because they can use that to kind of get to the different ponds, you know, in and around the property, but go through that moist grass. So good point.
It ends up to be a transition section as
corridor
well.
For them, right? A wildlife corridor,
And up at your cabin, I mean, in that meadow, I've been there. That's a beautiful meadow that's out in there. So all winter, the owls and stuff would be hunting there. You must see owl plunges.
Oh yeah, and grouse, you know, like tunneling in the snow. You guys saw that in one of my last videos.
Exactly.
So. Yeah.
And it's with your small yards, people often think of, you know, where your cabin is a fantastic area, but people think that their yard if it's a postage stamp yard, they can't do anything about it. Habitat's habitat. Yeah. And it'll get utilized for sure. Yeah.
And what do you recommend? You know, we've got a lot of cardinals in my new neighborhood. So how should I landscape the yard for cardinals to kind of keep them around, to keep them feeling comfortable in my lot?
Yeah, so cardinals are considered a low level bird. So if you think about orioles or tanagers or those kind of things, they're always up in the
tops
aspens,
of trees and
tops of trees and stuff. Well, cardinal's considered a lower level bird, and they're traditionally a ground feeder by like their nature is to be a ground feeder, so they don't perch really well. So if you have a feeder that has a really tiny little perch, that they won't kind of use that. They want something of a platform or a fly-through feeder, as we call it, so that it has a good access. Experiment with location of your feeder too, because as I always say, particularly with all this bright white snow, if you were bright red, you'd want to hide as well.
Okay, so areas for them to hide. So should I consider putting in some shrubbery or some
shrubs and stuff? And I mean, sumac, cedar for sure. I within our little area there that we planted and how we've naturalized our yard, I put in some serviceberry trees so that it creates berries. Any shrubs that create berries that are
that's a natural native species. The
serviceberry is a natural native species, and creates a nice little berry that all the birds. So you get cedar waxwings, Bohemian waxwings, evening grosbeaks. Depending on where you are. This year we had a lot of pine grosbeaks around as well, so they all like that sort of thing. So any of those that you can particularly, if you can put all that stuff on the edge of your yard, have the native grasses and stuff in the center, so you don't have to mow lawn.
I hate mowing grass. I love the cabin because it's like a hayfield. Like I leave it alone except for a little pathway into the cabin, right?
That's all you need.
I don't like mowing, so this is also an important thing. If you don't like mowing the grass, naturalize your yard. You get tons more insects, mammals, birds in there.
Absolutely, and take it a far stretch from that. There's no emissions controls on all these lawnmowers and trimmers, and so it's just compounding the problem that we have. So, and if you don't want to be mowing grass and you'd rather be at the cabin,
let the yard take care of itself. Naturalize it, right?
Naturalize your yard, and don't worry about Kentucky bluegrass and spraying for weeds and all that kind of stuff, because the weeds are actually not weeds. That's what we've classed them to be. So
this is a good segue, because Bob and I just did a little chat for his channel, his YouTube channel, Gilligallou Bird, on invasive species and your yard and things like that. So go over to his channel, check it out. We've had a great discussion there as well about that it's we call things weeds. Weeds are actually food for ourselves and other animals and things like that. So go check out his channel. We did a great little talk on that. So in terms of the types of seeds I should be offering to maximize the bird population in my yard for creating biodiversity, I know you have a lot here at the shop. What do you recommend is a good seed? What should I have around the yard? So
we have a couple specific blends that are designed based on location. So we have an urban blend that's based on the science of birds that live in an urban location. So we take a baseline of birds and say, okay, they tend to be urbanized birds, which is a cardinal actually. They're a very urban bird. We do have them in rural areas, but they're very urban. So our blends take care of all that. Then we have a rural blend that takes care of the baseline of rural birds that you get on a regular basis. They're both seasonally adjusted to be high in proteins in the summer and high in carbohydrates in the winters. Creates body heat. There's no waste or filler in any of the seeds.
That's great. GMO free.
GMO free, biodegradable bag. It's all so it enhances our position. So we have about 17 different varieties of seed, but we probably have a half a dozen that are sort of our main go-tos. And then our garden-friendly blend is something that's very popular as well. We're just standing beside it here actually. So the other thing with the garden-friendly is that even though there's absolutely no waste or filler in any of our seed, the hulls have been removed, so that you have absolutely no germination of any kind. So if you have extensive gardens with some natural plants and rock gardens and waterfalls and what have you, and you don't, you're weeding, if you like, in there anyway, you won't have this anything germinating to come up. So it's a great product. Then when you get into our Niger seed for the finches, so we want to dedicate to the finches. So American goldfinch all summer, and we have all kinds of red poles around all this winter.
Tons this year.
Tons of red poles around. Absolutely. And then the transition birds, white-crowned sparrows, white-throated sparrows, pine siskins, all will also access your Niger seed feed. And we have 3 specific blends for that as well.
Oh, that's great. In addition to the seeds, I think I might naturalize some of the plants that would normally come up in the yard, like burdock, for example, that they produce those little burrs, that get stuck on your clothes and are really annoying. They're great food, not only for us, but also for the birds. They like to cling on and sort of pick the little seeds out of the dried burdocks. So
particularly the goldfinch.
Particularly the goldfinch, exactly. So, there may be some areas of the yard that actually let go a little bit fallow just to kind of see what kind of comes up. Because there'll be also some important food, you know, for our species in the yard.
Awesome. That sounds like a great plan.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see it.
I know. I'm excited to get started. Would you advise also making, you know, like a bird bath or a kind of a pond, or like, what's your advice on that?
Just what makes you happy and what space you have available, but certainly we work on the three things. We want to provide food, we want to provide water, and provide shelter. So shelter can be not only our nesting birds that are cavity nesters, but also to have winter boxes that are available. And I winterize my nesting boxes at home. I just kind of fill in some of the cracks with some shavings or whatever from the shop, or plug at the holes with a little bit of insulation or something, just to winterize them, so they'll use them as a roosting box throughout the winter to get out of the cold. And birds that aren't cavity nesters will use them as well. But then you can get ring swallows and eastern bluebirds and wrens and all kinds of really cool little birds that'll use those nesting boxes. The water year round. Water in the wintertime is very specific, because then it provides them with, not only helps them with their digestion and metabolism, but it also then they don't have to expend energy to find water.
Right, because they don't want to be eating snow all the time, because that really cools down their core temperature.
Exactly.
So, you know, you can certainly, Bob has a lot of great products here at the Gilligallou Bird store in Almont, you know, like heaters for your bird baths and things like that, so that you're not always chipping out the ice and stuff like that.
Bird baths that are specific when there's no danger to the birds at all. It just provides them with the water source.
So yeah, I mean, for my yard, I think I've got the message that, you know, provide lots of shelter, sort of native species of grasses, and, you know, certain mixes like, you know, bee mixes, you know, other like hummingbird mixes, so that lots of flowers come up for those kind of, you know, the nectar ingesters, obviously. Lots of water and shelter, so making sure to put up some, you know, bird houses as well for everybody, because they'll be using those, like you said, for nesting in the spring and summer, and then housing sort of for them roosting spots in the winter.
When you think about your yard in terms of natural plants too, so if we think about what we're planting as to what's going to use it, as we mentioned earlier. So if we have seed eaters, we want to plant something that produces seed. We have berry eaters, we want to plant something that produces berries.
Service berry or something like that.
And then the plants themselves will attract the natural bugs that are associated with those plants that attract the bug eaters to your yard. And we talked about at this Horticultural Society talk the other day, and I mentioned about what, you know, to people, and I kind of tossed it out there just as a question, not to make anybody feel that they didn't know the answer, but I said, why do monarch butterflies only lay eggs on milkweed? And everybody kind of had an answer, and it was not incorrect, but they have evolved for thousands and thousands of years with the milkweed. When they lay their eggs there, the young monarchs eat the milkweed. They've grown resistant to the toxins that are in that plant, and it doesn't hurt them. That's the only reason they do that. They've evolved with them. So if you throw in unnatural products there, bugs come along, lay their eggs, eat the plant, they die. They did. They did. And we don't want that. We want to sustain ourselves and the people and animals and birds that we live with.
Increase biodiversity. We don't want like a monoculture of stuff in the yard, like a big patch of grass. That's not really doing anybody any service.
None.
Some people see that aesthetic. I don't see it as aesthetic at all. I like to see biodiversity in my yard, because that's going to support us in the long run. You know, we're seeing a lot of extinctions and deterioration of animals just due to our, you know, intervention and what we think is how the world should look. And I think we need to get away from that way of thinking and promote biodiversity. So
agreed.
Yeah, so I'm going to get a start on it this spring. I'm really excited, and Bob's given me some great ideas today, so I really thank you for that.
I appreciate you coming in, and I appreciate it. There's lots of information on gilligallowbird.com.
Yes, so follow Bob on YouTube, on Instagram, Facebook, and come on, check out the store here in Almont. Lots of good products for you to get started with your springtime goals for birding and in your yard.
Absolutely. I'm thinking you're going to be busier in your yard. Did you want me to go to the cabin for you?
Sure. But you got some work for you to do.
Okay, well, I always like to do a little bit of work.
Yeah, anytime.
Thanks for coming in.
Well, thanks so much, Bob, for chatting with us today. And if you guys have any questions for me or Bob, don't forget to put them down below in the comments section. Hope you guys have a great week as always.
Have fun.
Take care.